I'm only doing this to stack and get through grad school. The Stanford PhD robotics program is 50 bands a semester. When I'm out, it's new beginnings for me. I'm sick and tired of looking over my shoulder all the time and justifying committing felonies just to get paid.
Now, there were a lot of clues left dating all the way back to Effie's time on Power, telling us exactly how this was going to go down at some point in season 4. And in my opinion, I think they're only getting started with Effie's betrayal. I also think this is the beginning of Effie working with Tariq again, but I'm not saying Tariq will trust her, he definitely won't. But I also think the early betrayal could also set up her demise, maybe even at the hands of Cane, because he isn't the same character as he was in season 1. Any bit of mischief, anything that doesn't make sense, he will question and investigate. So in this breakdown, we're going to be running through Effie's relationship with Cane in a lot more detail. We're going to get a better understanding of who Effie is as a character, why she felt the need to warn Tariq, and where they might be heading with this particular storyline in all things Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Now, when it comes to Effie as a character, the history and evidence always pointed towards the fact she was always going to betray Cane. Going all the way back to Power, even though she started to grow close to Tariq, at the end of the day when he started operating on her turf, she did what she had to do to protect her future. She saw him as a competition and she got rid of the competition. Throughout Ghost Seasons 1 and 2, we've also seen and heard various conversations of how Effie only cares for herself. She only looks out for number 1. And so based on the history, a lot of us knew this right here was inevitable. Maybe none of us thought it would be so soon. Maybe none of us thought it was going to happen halfway through episode 1. But I think a lot of us as the audience knew she would at least betray Cane at some point. Now, it doesn't mean she doesn't care about Cane, because I do think she does. She went to him as soon as he was shot because she wanted to make sure he was okay. And the reaction of her going to Cane straight away tells me she was worried. She wanted to drive him to the penthouse and be there while he was patched up. And I think a lot of this stems from the fact that Cane was in a corner when nobody else was. In season 3, when Tariq ended the relationship, she was kicked out of the business. She had no product, no money to pay for her education, and she found herself in a really vulnerable place. That's when Cane was there for her by paying for her tuition, breaking her off some product, to even warning her to watch her back when she was in prison. You also had Monet in one ear warning him how much of a danger Effie could be, but Cane still went as far as to putting on a suit, tie and glasses just to go and see his love. So everything that she'd worked so hard for to get to the position she was in, just like Tariq mentioned in 401, it was at huge risk, and that's where Cane stepped in. She even said she appreciated it in 401. For majority of her life she's been super independent, looking out for herself even when she was with Tariq. She was always talking about how she wanted to be her own woman. She wanted to be someone who had her own identity. She didn't want to just be known as Tariq's girl. Now, the moment she let her guard down in and after Milan, everything blew up in her face, which was also down to Lauren's return. But that's one of the main reasons why she's always wanted to be in control over her own destiny. And so we have to remember who she is as a character.
Now Effie got arrested and you know her, she only cares about number 1.
Yeah, Effie always gonna look out for Effie, right?
Kane.
Effie's always going to look out for Effie. Tariq and Brayden knew what she was like because they've experienced the betrayal, and also known her for years. She's always going to look out for number 1, which also somewhat makes her very similar to Tariq in a way. You know, the question for Tariq towards the end of Power, and for majority of Power Book 2 Ghost is, what is he willing to do to protect his future? We've seen him kill countless of people, including his father. He's had to commit some heinous acts, where innocent civilians have found themselves in the crossfire, and he's also had to fight at every single turn just to protect his future. But that question also extends to Effie and a lot of the other characters.
But you decided to step out of your white-ass, privileged-ass lane, and you threatened my future.
So just like she told Lauren in season 3, she was always going to do what she had to do. And I think the early betrayal with Cane in season 4 does stem from a few factors. I think despite what they've been through, Effie still cares more about Tariq than she does Cane. You know, sometimes it's just how it is. Despite what they've been through and despite what we go through in real life, sometimes there are people you come across that just leave a huge impact. You're always going to be drawn to them, or you always have a soft spot for them, and I do think that's Tariq for Effie. Out of anger, out of spite and rejection, she made the move to get closer to Nomar to protect her future, but once the dust kind of settled, you saw it on her face. She doesn't want to see Tariq hurt. I can't personally see them being love interests ever again, but she doesn't want to see Tariq hurt. I also feel like Effie's end goal doesn't really align with Cane or where she is under Nomar. Effie's got this vision of going to Stanford. That hasn't changed in season 4. She wants to complete her further education and get out of a life she only knows ends in death or jail. She's already had a taste of jail, wearing that orange jumpsuit where her freedom was completely stripped away. But the life that Cane lives, or the operation that Nomar has, you're always going to constantly be looking over your shoulder. which doesn't align with Effie's future plans, whereas we know Tariq's plans do. They may never end up together like before, but she knows Tariq's vision is very similar to hers. So it was only a matter of time before we saw this. Her face said it all, and then there was the text message to Tariq. She was even willing to give up the 100k that was on offer from Noma, even though that would have been a huge help towards her future plans. So it's been made pretty clear, she's not down with Cane and Noma's vision, and she also doesn't want to see Tariq being hurt. But how far does Effie's betrayal really go? That's the first question. I think Tariq telling Davis McLean early on, Effie and the Tahadas are after him, and telling Brayden that this snake bitch Effie turned, that confirms she wasn't sent by Tariq to work as an inside mole. If she was sent as an inside mole, I think we would have heard him have that conversation with Brayden. Tariq would have said, listen, don't worry, I've got this. I've got Effie on the inside, but that never happened. We saw them scramble to safety, they got to the storage unit and they continued with their plan to try and get to Anya Covington. And not one point did Tariq say he's got Effie on the inside. However, if Effie wasn't working on the inside before, I do think she will be going forward. I think her messaging Tariq and warning him is just scratching the surface when it comes to her betrayal, because for her character, it's all about self-preservation. So it is going to be very interesting to see the way she moves. What moves does Effie make to make her dreams a reality? I think she's going to be quite conflicted in season 4, and there are probably going to be a lot of factors that do come into play. Maybe her past and her history with her mother, because she is teased to be in season 4. But this is Effie's character description for season 4, which was released by Amazon Prime. It reads, entering season 4, Effie Morales is very aware the game will only end in one way for her, so she doubles down on herself and her ultimate goal, a PhD in robotics from Stanford, and she needs to get to Stanford as soon as possible before she gets any deeper and finds it impossible to get out of the life. With the help of Professor Bennett, she applies to a co-term program that would allow her to finish up her undergraduate degree and begin her PhD studies at Stanford. But once Effie is officially accepted and the future she's dreamt of is within reach, she questions whether or not she's ready to leave behind everything she knows for it. Although there is one thing we know about Effie, she's a survivor. So just like I mentioned in my episode 1 breakdown, I stuck to the theme of survival and revenge, and that's what Effie is, she's a survivor. So it's going to be very interesting to see what decisions she makes going forward. Now having said all of that, let's just take a look at Kane's perspective, because this is where it starts to get a little interesting.
Trying to distract me.
Now I did also raise this point in my breakdown. Kane might have fallen for Effie and she might be his weakness, but this isn't the same Kane as season 1. We've seen him mentored by Mecca and also sniffing out how he was a narc. We've also seen how he was able to figure out how Lorenzo killed Zeke, how he put 2 and 2 together that Monet was behind Lorenzo's death. At some point, I also expect him to figure out what Drew and Diana had planned, and the same goes for Effie. So will he figure out that Effie might just be distracting him? I mean, she might have not been in that particular moment, but I do think he's called it in the sense that she will be a distraction. His character has a knack of saying things that just end up becoming true, so will he figure out that she's the one going behind his back? I think we all know he will. How he finds out is the next question, and then we have to ask the question around what will he do when he does find out? Could Kane kill Effie? Or will Effie and Tariq work together in a way where they were able to kind of bring down Noma and the Tahadas before Kane can put any of his moves into motion? I think when it comes down to it, Tariq and Effie have to know for them to truly be free, it isn't just about Effie going to Stanford. They have to get rid of those who have control over their lives, those who are suppressing their freedom. But I think we know that there's going to be so many moving parts that shifts alliances, relationships, and business operations. For example, Monet will come out of hospital and look to get her control back. Does she kind of make Kane see the bigger picture of who Effie is? There's the Drew and Diana betrayal which will definitely change things. Effie I'm sure will continue to look out for Effie, and then there's Kane potentially questioning Effie around her plans, and him getting closer to Noma. There's going to be so many moving parts which we aren't expecting, which will definitely change and impact this situation. But in the end, will it all lead to Kane getting rid of Effie? The one thing which will definitely complicate this scenario is Tariq. I don't think Tariq will ever trust Effie again, but if Effie's the reason why Tariq is able to achieve his end goal, if Effie's the reason why he's able to bring down Noma and the Tahadas, if Effie does him a big enough game-changing favour, I think she might just be able to save her skin, and in the end, Tariq tells her to kind of just leave and do her own thing. That's only she helps Tariq in such a way where he eventually comes out as the winner. But will Kane let that happen? Will he let her betrayals go unanswered? I think we all know there are no happy endings on Power, so I'm leaning towards him eventually killing Effie, or the story not ending in such a way where she hopes. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. How do you guys see this playing out between Effie, Tariq, and Kane? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.